Alright, welcome. I said I'd make a video, and so here it is. And look, normally what I would do if this was an online class, I'd show you what I look like, but you've seen my mug all semester, so we don't need to do that. Anyway, I'm going to do a screencast, and what I'm going to do here is here's our class page. This is tab 14, so this video will be right above this reproductive system lesson. So anyway, there are diagrams as always. Like here is a blank. This is a blank male reproductive system, blank female. There are a couple on there that are labeled. This one's a little smaller, so you can actually, you can make it a lot bigger. Not that's dramatically bigger. You can do this one also. That's a labeled female, and then you have there's this kind. It's kind of a different view. It's a male. It looks more like a sea monster than anything. But anyway, so what I'm going to do, this is let's see where it is. I'm going to do the male parts first. So this is the list. So here are all the slides that we're going to cover. There's all the male slides, and it looks like there's only 2 female slides, and then we have all these male reproductive structures and then female reproductive structures. Alright, so I'm going to show you the male parts first. So what I did, I took a picture. Let's do this one first. So here's a cross section. Look, we have a whole bunch of different, you've probably noticed at this point, we have a lot of different model pieces. So this is one of them. This is one of the better ones. So I'm going to stop at the top of the list. So under male reproductive structures, this down here would be the testes. They're responsible for producing sperm. This on the top, it's not a great view. Up here, this kind of little fold looking thing, and there's another one here. I have another male part. Let me get a little closer. Oops. Okay, and I just noticed I did not take apart things you never hear at other jobs. I did not take the whole penis apart, so I got that part on there. Oh, well, no worries. But so anyway, here's the epididymis on the top. See, that's the testes. So just like the other diagram, and right there would be its little fold. Anyway, the epididymis is where sperm actually mature. They're formed in the testes, and they move up here, and they mature in the epididymis. Now, I just realized something that I didn't do, but coming off of the epididymis, and let's see if we can see it on the other side here, and well, not really. The Vas Deferens is this cord that comes around, and it goes along the back here, and it dumps in here. This is called the ejaculatory duct. I believe that's the only thing I don't have on here. But this diagram, and it's not great because it doesn't do, this is the vas deferens. See, here's the epididymis on the top. Here are the testes, and this cord represents the vas deferens. So I'll have to show you that when I get back. The seminal vesicles are back here on the back of the bladder. I'm going to go back to this diagram, and I did that also. I swear, I promise I'm a highly trained professional. Anyway, on the back of the bladder, which would be on the other side, are the seminal vesicles. So that's strike 2. I have to show you that when I get back in class. I can show you this. This is the prostate right here. It's a chestnut-shaped gland. Here is the bladder. This is the urethra. It comes out this way, and even on the other diagram, this is the other male. You can actually see right in that area it would be the prostate. So inside the prostate you have this little crease, and that's what this is representing. This is called the ejaculatory duct. That's where the vas deferens comes around, and also the seminal vesicles on the back of the bladder, they dump in right here where the prostate is. The prostate makes a fluid that's part of semen, and the vas deferens carries sperm, and the seminal vesicles also produce a fluid that's related to semen. There on the back, see, this is supposed to represent, right there would be the ejaculatory duct. And I can use this blank half of a guy, but that's a seminal vesicle. It looks like, honestly, it looks like a waffle or a honeycomb thing on the back when you take it apart on our models. That's the ejaculatory duct, and this tube coming around would be the Vas Deferens. Anyway, the next thing on there, it says the penis, which is this part coming off this way. Let's see. So right here, all that section, the glands would be the tip, which on here, I'm sorry, I'm switching back and forth, but so number 42 there, that's the glands. The penis actually has 2 layers of what's called erectile tissue. So I'm going to skip down to the bottom of your list. This coming off this way, this is called the Corpus Cavernosum, this on the top. This going around this way with the holes in it, and they both have holes, is called the Corpus Spongiosum. The spongiosum surrounds the urethra. That's going to be important when I show you the slides. So anyway, it's a special kind of erectile tissue, well, connective tissue, those little openings filled with blood, that's what causes an erection. And then, just looking at your list, like I said, here's the urethra, see how it comes down that way. There's the bladder. On the other diagram, you can see the bladder there, there's the urethra. Like I said, I didn't take this part off, so you can't see the actual layers on that particular model. And then this over here, this little teardrop shaped gland, that's called the bulbourethral gland, or a Cowper's gland, C-O-W-P-E-R-S, Cowper's gland. That secretes what's called pre-ejaculate fluid, and it actually comes out first, and then all the other secretions come out, which constitute semen. I doubt on this one, it's down here kind of lower, you really can't see it on that particular model. If you go back to the pictures, there's the bulbourethral gland, there's the prostate, there's the urethra, and even on these diagrams here, that's the corpus cavernosum on top, and these little layers around it are the corpus spongiosum. So, and like I said, that's a seminal vesicle. So that's all the guy parts. I believe we covered everything. Well, everything I can show you. I forgot to take a picture of the other side of that model. I blame my parents. So, guy diagram. I'm going to go ahead and close out. That's another guy diagram just to get those out of the way. And then let's go back to this. Let's see. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to close this one out. Alright. Look, these models and the pictures that I picked, they look really close. You look at that, and if you go back to the female blank diagram, that's pretty close. So, female parts, up here are the ovaries. This is called the fimbriae, the beginning of what's called the fallopian tube or uterine tube is called the infundibulum. And then the fallopian tube, or, well, this is called the infundibulum, and the actual fallopian tube or uterine tube is that. So on our model, it might be kind of tough to see. Well, it definitely is on that one. On this one here, look, you can see an ovary. This is the little fimbriae, the little finger projections. That little swollen area right there is called the infundibulum, and then this coming down would be the actual uterine tube. You can barely see these on here. This coming down this way is the round ligament. This area right here that's connected to the ovary is actually the ovarian ligament, and this whole side of tissue, that's the only thing I see I didn't do, but up here there's a flap of tissue, it's called the broad ligament. I'll have to show you that one. Okay, the uterus is this up here. This area where it's called the neck of the uterus is the cervix. These are called fornices or the fornix, these little creases on the side. This is the vagina. This is what's called the external genitalia. This is called the labia minora. This outer fold is the labia majora. This is the clitoris, which, as far as when we're developing, everybody starts out female, and then the Y chromosome makes everybody male. So the clitoris actually has a corpus cavernosum and a hood. It's just the Y chromosome would make, creates guy characteristics. It develops more in males. I did not take a picture of mammary glands or the areola or the nipple. That's probably, so I can show you that when I get back. There's a couple of these I'm missing. But that's all the female parts. Here's the uterus. Here's the vagina, labia minora, labia majora. This right here is the clitoris. That's the fornix, and that would be the cervix. And the bladder's underneath the uterus. And you can barely see it there. That's the round ligament. This is the ovarian ligament, and then there's a big flap of tissue that kind of comes across that way, including that a little bit. That's called the broad ligament. It helps support everything. Okay, it looks like that's all the female parts. See, uterus, cervix, fornix, vagina, clitoris, labia minora and majora, bladder, urethra, see, fallopian tube, fimbriae. The beginning of the fallopian tube is called the infundibulum, and that part that looks like it's got bumps all over it, that's actually an ovary. All right, that's everything labeled. Yeah, this says labia minus, labia majus. Either one. I usually stick with our list. But anyway, that's all the little mannequin parts. I'm going to close out these two, just to get them out of the way. And then, let's see, that's my Google. All right, so let me show you the slides, and then I'm going to wrap up this super detailed video. So here's the first one. This is a slide. Now I'm starting at the top of our list. These are the male reproductive slides. This is a slide of the testes. This big thick layer across here is called the Tunica Albuginea. It's just a layer of connective tissue. If you go down here, you'll see some of the other parts, which is the next slide. These structures here are called Seminarist Tubules. All of these that go across that way. They actually are the ones that produce sperm. The hollows, the white space is the lumen. Anyway, there's immature sperm inside there. Every once in a while you'll see some cells between these structures, like these down here and that one over there. Here's a patch of them here. These are called interstitial cells or cells of Leydig. They actually produce testosterone. And it looks like that's all the parts of the testes. So you have the Tunica Albuginea, these structures here. They look like tubes. Those are Seminarist tubules. Sperm are little lines inside. The white area would be the lumen. And this here would be what is called the interstitial cells or cells of Leydig. Alright, next slide. This is what an epididymis looks like. That's the thing that sits on top of the testes. All of this between here is smooth muscle. This is called a duct, and it's lined, those little lines in there are actually cilia. It's lined with the ciliated columnar cells. They do not move, they're non-motile. And all this between these ducts are smooth muscle. And this is where sperm are stored and they mature, and this is where they are prior to being ejaculated. So all that smooth muscle helps get these out of these duct areas. So ciliated, I showed you that, that's the lining. Yeah, smooth muscle, and then this is the lumen, all that. Now, the Ductus Deferens or Vas Deferens, either one, it's just basically a tube. It goes around from the epididymis all the way around to the prostate, the ejaculatory duct. All of this here is called the lumen. This would be the lining of the Vas Deferens. This is the ciliated cells as well. Ciliated columnar cells. That's the lumen. And smooth muscle is all this big thick layer, because the Vas Deferens has to squeeze sperm from the epididymis around to the prostate. So it's got a really thick smooth muscle layer. Okay, these are sperm. I don't know if you can tell in this picture. Let me see. I don't think I'll get any closer. This is it. Anyway, this is the head. you have a small little area there that's called the body, and then all of this is the tail. And when you get in lab, you can notice one here. You can notice it there. There's a lighter area on the top that's called the acrosome. Anyway, it's an area, it has digestive enzymes. It helps break down the outside of an egg and all the little cells around an egg. So that's called the acrosome. And this is the next slide. This is the last of the male slide. This is a penis slide. This thing here that looks like a Christmas tree with a white space, that's the urethra. You know, the urethra goes throughout the penis. And this is a layer. This is the mucosa layer. But none of that's on your list. But I wanted to point out, this is the urethra. Remember, the erectile tissue around the urethra is called the corpus spongiosum. So that's what these white areas are, the holes, and all this tissue around the urethra is called the corpus spongiosum. So when you're looking at this slide, if you come up here on Thursday and see this, or any other day, if you can see the urethra in the picture and you know this is a penis slide, this has got to be the corpus spongiosum. So what happens is you have to scan down further towards the middle of the slide, you'll come across something like this. This is actually called the Tunica Albuginea. It actually runs throughout the penis as well. And it's that thick kind of layer, and I know there's a white space there, but it's more dense. And this tissue here is actually the corpus cavernosum, because this would be on top. This separates the cavernosum from the spongiosum. So the way you can tell the difference as to where you are on the slide, if you can see the urethra, then this has to be the corpus spongiosum. If you don't see the urethra and you see this dense layer here, this would be what's called the corpus cavernosum. So both those are erectile tissue. Now we're not going to do all of these slides in this PowerPoint. Like this, for instance, is a uterus. We don't have this slide anymore, so don't worry about that. This is a uterine tube, which is a fallopian tube. This is supposed to represent the inside of a fallopian tube. These are the layers, you know, the middle layer of a fallopian tube. All these little things that look like fingers, I know we kind of covered these earlier, they're called villi inside of the duodenum or small intestine. This is the mucosa layer. This layer here would be the smooth muscle layer, and the very outside layer would be what's called the serosa layer. And it still has the same 4 layers as the alimentary canal. You would have a mucosa, submucosa, which would be pretty thin. Then you'd have a muscle layer and then a serosa layer on the outside. That slide's actually showing, this is the serosa out here. See the big arteries, and it's breaking off. This layer in here, and then a little bit of this layer is the muscle layer. There's not a whole lot there. The uterine tubes or fallopian tubes don't do a whole lot of constricting. They do a little bit to help force sperm up towards the egg. But when an egg gets released, it drops down in these little folds here, and that's where it sits and it waits. So that's a uterine tube, and that's everything. So yeah, this is the lumen. These little finger projections with the layer of cells on top is called the mucosa. The muscularis would be out here, and then the serosa is the very outside layer. Alright, this is an ovary slide, and on your slide list, this is the last female slide, it's called a Graafian follicle. Well, or that's what it says on your list. This is actually an ovary. This thing over here is a Graafian follicle. So see these smaller structures look like cells? Those are called primordial follicles. Females are born with about 400,000 of those. Only 400 actually reach maturity. This is what FSH, the hormone, does. So this over here that I don't have in the picture is actually what's called a mature follicle. It would start out this size, and then hormones cause it to grow into something like this. It'd be this whole thing, and part of it you can't even see it. It goes up out of the picture and comes around and includes this part in here. This is an ovum, a secondary oocyte, egg cell ovum. That's what gets released during ovulation. This and all these cells around it. So that acrosome on a sperm has to break all this down and plus get through the layer on the egg. So this whole thing is called a Graafian follicle, and that's an ovum. And these are primordial follicles. So anyway, you can play this back if you thought I talked too fast. You can. It is a video, so anyway, that is everything. And when I come back from our for my little trip. I'll probably real quick just kind of go through everything again with you on next Tuesday. But all right, take it easy. Thanks for joining me.